So let me ask you a question. You spend your entire life from the age of 4 wanting to be a professional soccer player. You defy all odds at achieving that dream, signing a professional contract at age 18. But injury and perhaps your ethnicity as a British Asian caused that dream to come crashing down a short time later. So when your entire life has been one dream and it's over, what do you do next? Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Simon Osmer, and on this channel I share stories that will educate, inform and inspire to help you live a life of significance. Now today's guest is Krish Patel, the founder of Tales to Inspire. Krish will share how he moved forward when his dream came crashing down, how an opportunity in America gave him fresh perspective, a new focus and a new dream to help others never give up and give meaning, knowing that stories are the pages of this book we call life. But before we get into today's video, if you get value from this content, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell to be notified every time I release a new inspiring story. Then will you join me as I interview Krish Patel, the founder of Tales to Inspire. Well, Krish Patel, welcome to the Riverbank podcast.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you for having me on, mate.
Well, the starting reference where you've called me mate, my viewers are going to notice that you're a fellow Brit over here, but you are in England. Maybe start off a bit about where you are.
Yeah, I'm in a small town or a town called Bolton. I'm not too far from Manchester. So if anyone knows about soccer, Manchester United, Manchester City, I live about 10 miles away from there. I call it the land of the clouds because you don't see blue sky very often up here, and it rains a lot. However, it's home. It's home, and they say home is where the heart is, right?
Well, and the reason why I want to address your accent is that we're both Brits, but they're going to notice that you've got like a different accent to me. So you're like a northern accent, and I'm like a sort of southern London accent. So it's always good for my Americans to hear different accents. But thanks for joining me, and I'm really excited to talk to you because over the last few months, we've been getting to know each other a lot more, and I consider you a friend. I really do. It's been a great honor to get to know you. And I'll start off by saying you run an organization called Tales to Inspire, and we'll sort of end the conversation around Tales to Inspire. But it's a organization where you do breakthrough coaching, you inspire through other people's stories, and there's some fantastic sort of introduction stuff I've got about you, Krish. But in 2016, you ran 4 marathons in 4 consecutive days, so you're clearly a bit crazy. But the reason why you did that was to create and build or help build a school in Uganda, which is still instrumental, helping 150 kids each year. And as if that wasn't enough, in 2019, you swam 53 miles in a national park in England called the Lake District, where I can say for my American viewers and the rest around the world, that's bloody freezing. So that incredible. And again, you did that to help awareness surrounding homelessness. So, there's a lot of sort of help you do towards others, which is really going to resonate through your story. But also there's been a lot of adversity surrounding your chosen career path. And that's really where I'm going to sort of dive into. So firstly, welcome again for joining me.
Yeah, mate, and you just told my story better than I tell my story, man. Well, it's so true. It's so true. Actually, when you think of it like that, it's really interesting, mate, because what you just described is not the person who I thought I was ever.
Yes. Yeah.
I was a very superficial, shallow, didn't care for anybody else kind of person. And the things you just talked about, and it's actually really important because sometimes you get a little bit lost where you are. And I don't delve on things. I don't dwell on them, sorry. And you just brought it up. And it's actually kind of given me that, you know what, Krish, I've come a really long way. So thank you. No, thank you for sharing that.
No. Well, tell us a little bit about them. So 2016, you ran 4 marathons in 4 consecutive days. And I've got a good friend of mine called James Kay in England, who's one of these ultra marathon runners. And, he'll do these like 70 miles, 80-mile runs and stuff. I mean, it's just incredible. But to run 4 marathons, to swim 53 miles. I mean, the motivation for doing that was to help people less fortunate than yourselves. But how did you get the idea to even do that? I mean, it's not something you sat at home one day and you say, I know what I'm going to do to help suppose, less fortunate. Let's run like 100 miles over 4 days.
Well, then, if we're going into the why and the how and the craziness, I think I really have to start at the beginning, honestly, and kind of go from the beginning. And I promise I'll keep it adventurous and exciting for the listeners. But basically, my first memories on this earth are of me kicking a soccer ball, right? That's all I ever wanted to do. I was 4 years old. I knew that I loved soccer, and my home team are Bolton Wanderers. I'm still trying to convert you, Simon, to be a Bolton Wanderers fan. Yeah. It's coming slowly along.
Most of my viewers are thinking Bolton who, you know, they're Premiership teams. You know, so.
Well, they'll soon know after this podcast. They'll know. They'll buy their shirts. And then basically 4 years old, all I wanted to be was a footballer, a soccer player. And that's how I identified myself as a kid. As a child, I was Krish Patel, the guy who played football. And there was two things, though, that were big issues. I'm half Indian and I'm half English. So in England, you don't see Indian people playing football. And I would get told, I would get racist abuse. People call me there's a derogatory term towards Pakistani people that we call them a Paki. I would get called a Paki a lot. I would get told you shouldn't be on the football field. Go and play with your own bunch. You know what I mean? Go and play with your own lot. The people who were you, or are like you. So I got that racist abuse from a really young age, or discrimination, however you want to call it. And I also was really chubby child. So people say chubby, I say I was a really fat kid, like super fat. And I struggle with my identity as a young kid, knowing that I love football, but I didn't look like what your typical football player would look like. So I get to 18 years old. No one's believed in me except my parents. No one thinks I can be a professional football player. It was my dream. 18, I became a professional soccer player in England, and I had made it. And not only made it, the percentage of Indian football players is so minute that actually I'd done better than, although there's 1.25 billion people in India, guess what? There's hardly any professional football players. So I had made it to a certain degree, the bottom rung, really. I got to play against Manchester United, Manchester City, some of the best players in the world, my idols, Paul Scholes, Paul Pogba. Like, you're talking people who you just think, man, it's great. But I saw myself as an equal against them, you know? But I have to admit, it's a very superficial world to live in. I was focused on girls, cars, money, fashion. I have to admit, Simon, I didn't have any of them. I had none of the above. However, that's what I cared about. And at 18, I was injured, as many sports people get. I suffered with injury, and I was injured for my first year. I was injured a lot. The guys got promoted. They did well. They went up a league to League One, so 2 leagues below the Premier League. However, I didn't feel part of it. I was injured the whole time, and I literally felt lost. I suffered from my first struggles with depression. 18, 19 years old as a kid, and I didn't know who to go to. I had nowhere I could go. I remember starting going to the casino during the week at 12 o'clock in the day and playing poker, and not even spending big money, just wasting time. And Simon, I even remember getting into my car at the age of 18 and 19 years old, and I would just drive with no destination. And that's how my life was. I was just floating like a feather in the sky, not knowing where I was going to land. And I got released as a professional football player at 19, which kicked my backside. I really struggled with it because you get told everything. You're the best. Here, have everything you want. You're going to be this. You're going to be great. And I get it. However, at 19 years old, I dropped out of school when I was 16 to play football. And at 19 years old, I had no education except to GCSEs, which really doesn't mean much in England. I had no football club I could get. And I was going to new football clubs with a name like Krish Patel, like not helpful. And I really struggled. And then I got an offer to go to California. Now, this is where the US side of this comes in.
Let me just pause in there a second. So I just want to come in about, you said from like 4 to maybe like 19. So you've had 15 years of all your life is wanting to be the soccer player. You achieve that goal and then to be released. I mean, I can imagine that must have been devastating. Can you remember the day when you got released, or when you realised that your contract wasn't going to be extended? Do you know the sort of the date and time when that happened?
Yeah, I'm not good with dates and times. I know it was 2011, I think 2000. I think it was 2011, 2010, 2011. And the one thing I do remember is that we got promoted, and I'd already been told I was getting released. We had a new manager who came in, and obviously he'd not seen anything about me. He'd just seen me injured, and he came in. We got promoted, so we went to a place called Marbella, which is like in Spain. We all went on this. The chairman paid for everything. It was great. We were all having drinks and partying. We were celebrating and everything. And on the way back, I was the only player to get released that year. Out of 25, 26 players, I was the only one. And I remember just crying at the end. You know, when everyone says bye, I'll see you everyone would say bye, I'll see you at the start of pre-season for the next training. And it was me. It was bye, guys. And you know, there is no next. And I knew that. I remember crying, and the club doctor took me to one side and said, "Just cry it out, mate. Just cry it out," and so no one would see, kind of thing. And it was tough, because I still feel to this day that I could have, and this is a could have, would have, ifs and buts kind of thing, and we know, but I really feel that I had an opportunity where I could have really done a lot better. I didn't fulfill my potential. And that's something I've had to live with a little bit.
Yeah, and when you look at that decision, I mean, was it based purely on football, as in, you know, perhaps you weren't as good as others, or was it your injuries? What was the contributing factor that led up to your release?
There's a lot, really, but I mean, I remember.
If you had to say one thing why they said, "Hey, Krish, we're going in a different direction," why would you say it is? As you stand here today as a more mature person, why would you say they let you go?
So from my perspective, and this will be different from what the coaches say, but from my perspective, I'd never been injured before. Never. I was flying in pre-season. I was the fittest player there was. There was no one who could compete against me. I was done. I was ready. Every time I had 4 different injuries that kept me out for about 3 months at a time. Every time I came back from those injuries, the first time I was ready, I was still going. Guess what? A week later, I got the exact same injury on my other leg. Took me out for another 3 months. And I remember going from this confident young man, it's like take on the world, to the third time I got injured and I came back from that. I remember training and the ball was in the team. The team had the ball. And I was, in my head, I was saying, please don't give me the ball. Please don't give me the ball. Like, I was so scared and doubtful, because I just knew that all my confidence had gone. I'd never had anything like this before in my life, and I had no one I could talk to about it. And I just remember just being absolutely overwhelmed. I had no one to go to. So from my perspective, I agreed with them releasing me, because what they saw wasn't Krish. Like, what they saw towards the end of my career at Bury Football Club was this shell of a guy who had no confidence, didn't believe in himself, and actually was pretty much a poor player. So when the manager came in and did see me play after being injured, he said, this guy's rubbish. But actually, I never really, there was support that was massively lacking, hugely. And you see it, the suicide rate of young professional footballers or people don't make it is huge in England.
Like I said, I sort of want to ask you about that. Could you remember that date and time or period? Because, you know, when your entire life is built up to being a professional sports person, and then all of a sudden you're cut off, you know, you're on the outside. There must be a great transformation that has to occur just to think about, well, what do I do? What do I do next? But hey, before we move on to America, so I know that's where a lot of the stuff happened. I did a lot of research, and people that are listening to audio podcasts won't necessarily know that me and you are both people of color. You know, my father's Nigerian, my mum's white English. I know your mum's white English, and your dad is Indian. But I did a lot of statistics. Or read a lot of statistics about, like you say, sort of British Indians or British Asians, if you like, that make it as professional footballers. And in 2017, there were 3,000 professional footballers in England, England and Wales, I should say. And there was only 10 that were British Asians. And when you look at October 2019, there was another research, and a lot of these are done by the BBC. So very, in my mind, quite reliable sources. There was just 12 British Asians or South Asian players in the league. I mean, which isn't representative of our community as a whole back in England. Do you believe that your last name or ethnicity or, you know, who you were clearly was going against you? I mean, why is there only less than, you know, the hands I'm holding up, British Asian soccer players? And that's a deep question, I know, Krish, but I've got to take advantage of the time with you and ask that question.
Well, you talk about the BBC, right? And the BBC actually asked me to come on talking about this exact subject. I've been on 3 times on the BBC towards the end of last year, talking about racism within football. And they talked about all sorts, and I was surprised when they asked me to come on. Racism within football is there, 100%. And we can say what we want, whether it's visible or not. But there's definitely unconscious bias. And unless we accept that, if the ones who say, you know what, I'm not racist, actually, if you're not even willing to contemplate you being racist or discover or go a bit deeper, then you will actually never know. So from my perspective, I was like, you know what? No, when I was playing, I was like, I was work hard. No matter what, work hard. I'll be fine. I'll get there. But if it takes me 10 steps to work my ass off, where it's only taking you, Simon, 2, then that's an injustice. So actually, looking back, I would say a name like Krish Patel, I would say there was some kind of injustice. I got abused on the football pitch as well, often by opposition players. I didn't play against anyone. You said 10 players there. I think that's actually really good compared to what I played against when I was playing professional football. I don't ever remember playing against another British Asian player or an Asian player at all. And that's any Asian. You can talk about literally the whole of Asia. I don't remember playing against another player who was from Asia. So that's really deep. And I think there's definitely a systematic change that has to happen. That's because they're playing soccer, they're playing football, they're there. I see them playing in the communities, but they play with their own communities. They don't play with the mixed race lads, or they don't play with the English lads. They don't play at the professional level. They don't. Why do they feel that they need to play by themselves? Is it because they don't feel comfortable with the others? Are they bridging that gap? And is there a bridge for them to cross that gap? It's deep, mate. I think it is really deep, but I think it's something that even me, I got praised as being a British Asian football player when I was playing professional football. I got awards, asked to go down to London, all this jazz, right? And guess what? When I got released, who was there? Surely you would want to promote someone who's a British Asian player, so I could go into the communities and promote sport to this Asian culture that only cares about education. You know, it's all about education. From my mind, I was going to be a doctor or an engineer. That's what the Indian culture say. You say you're going to be a professional footballer, they go, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So my dad was good though. My dad's a sporty guy and he's a legend, so he was always like, go for it. But it's just the whole culture side of it. There's a whole culture of bias, and it's deep, but I think it's something we could talk about all week long, to be honest.
It is. And I just want to get your initial snapshot because it is interesting. Like I said, when you look at those statistics and numbers, I mean, they are incredibly low. And I believe now, I think the last one was going around 2019, and there's now around 3,700 professional soccer players in England, and sort of only 0.25 of that are now sort of British Asian. So the numbers are still low. So it was good to get your perspective as to what was driving that, because hey, you know, you ran 4 marathons in 4 days. You swam 53 miles. I'm a black English guy. It's more than I could do, but you know, it's like it's always fascinating for me surrounding does name and ethnicity to play into it. But hey, so I'll let you proceed now. So we're at the point where 15 years all you want to be is a professional soccer player. You get to that level, you get injured, the club move in a different direction, they release you, and then an opportunity to play soccer in America comes. So now you go, Chris.
Yeah, so I was struggling in England. I was just been released, didn't know where I was going to go. And I remember just being super depressed and super down. And I got an offer to go and play in California, and to play soccer in California. And it went like this. Now, remember, girls, cars, money, and fashion is all I cared about. Go California. lived close to the beach, full ride scholarship, great facilities, living in a mansion, great weather. And, you know, I'm thinking, like, I've gotten a picture of American Pie in my mind.
You've arrived here.
I've arrived. So I don't even think I closed the door behind me before I left England. And I was like, Mum and Dad, cheerio, I am off. Turned up in California, and all wasn't what I expected. I turned up in a small town called Susanville, California. I was about 12 hours from the beach that I thought I was supposed to be at. I was it was freezing cold in the winter, snow everywhere, ice. My scholarship was lied to. I didn't have a scholarship. I lived in a 3-bedroom house with 13 other guys. Our soccer field was a baseball field, so we had no facilities. 55 players for a 23-man team. All people from all over the world had spent their savings to get there. And they'd all been lied to by the coach and by the school to get there. And Susanville, California has 3 prisons, Simon, mate. It has 3 prisons. And
wow.
It has the maximum security prison, high desert prison, which were murderers and rapists throughout of all California go to. 4,500 people in that prison. A medium security prison where another 4,500 people go to. So that's basically 9,000 people. And then they had a young offenders prison. So let's pray just under 10,000 people are in the prisons out of a population of 15,000 people. So wow. Susanville, California is one depressing place, right? And I turn up a year ago, I was playing against Manchester United. Now I'm in Susanville, California with no scholarship, no facilities, living in this house that's awful. Like, honestly, you'd wipe your feet when you walk outside. That's how bad it was, kind of thing, you know? And I was down, mate. I was down. I was pissed off. I was angry. I was furious. And there was one guy in our team, and he was called Gabby. He's from Brazil. And he was always happy, Simon. Always happy. I hated that guy. I hated him. Man, I couldn't stand him. I was like, what has he got to be happy about? Like, he had it worse than me. He lived in a basement. And he wasn't even in the starting team. I was lucky enough to be in the starting team. And I was like, he was like, bro, never give up. And I was like, screw you. I don't like you whatsoever, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And one day I said to Gabby, Gabby, I'm going back to Bolton. I've had enough of this terrible situation. The coach, everyone's making me angry. And he said to me this sentence that changed my life. He said, Krish, if you keep running away from your obstacles, you're never going to overcome anything in your life.
Wow.
That moment, he saw the potential in me when I didn't see the potential in me, and actually took me under his wing. And I actually stayed in California for 2 years, which was tough. But actually, those most difficult moments, I created some of the most precious bonds. And I realized how beautiful life is. I actually transformed my struggles, and I actually started to care about people. I started to realize that, you know what Gabriel did for me, actually, that is a great feeling. And can I do that for someone else? Can I see the potential in someone else when they don't even see it in themselves? So I moved, mate, I got an offer to go to Montgomery, Alabama. So
you're going to all the nice places. I've got to be careful because I'm going for my citizenship right now. So don't want to upset my American audience or upset the federal government here. But sounds like you go to some glamorous places, Krish.
Mate, well, I only go to the glamorous ones, mate. If you ever want to come on holiday, mate, with me, mate, you're gonna have a great experience. But I got an offer to go to Montgomery, Alabama. Okay, and from my perspective, the capital of Alabama, how bad can it be, kind of thing. I looked on the map, and Atlanta looked close by. New Orleans didn't look too far. Orlando, like, obviously, I didn't realize how far they actually were. But I didn't know anything about Montgomery, if I'm going to be totally honest. But I knew that I'd been to Susanville, and no matter what was next, I've overcome Susanville, California. No matter what I come to, it's going to be so much better. And I get it. Montgomery, Alabama did feel like I was going back in time. However, I knew who I was by then. I knew that I had this self-generating engine. And it was great. I loved it. I mean, I saw a lot of, I don't know what you would call it, divide. A lot of divide in Montgomery. I saw a lot of struggle. But I created some of the most precious friendships that I will forever cherish. I had a great scholarship, great facilities, got to play. We did really well in the national tournaments. And I graduated in 2016 with a degree in business. And this is where things really started to change. I started to realize everything had been about me. It all been about the Krish show. Is Krish going to get his education? Is Krish going to play football? How can I be the best version of myself in that environment? But I realized, like, my phone, right? I can Facebook message someone across the world. Why can't I help someone across the world? That was my simple theory. And I wanted to do something for others. So 2016 is when I realized, you know what? I'm going to run 4 marathons in 4 days from the northwest of England to the northeast. And I would call it the Road to Uganda campaign. I'd go to Uganda and I would build something sustainable. And everyone was like, you, Krish, are crazy. You're going to run 4 marathons in 4 days. They would say, have you ever run a marathon? I'd say, no. And they'd say, you're going to go to Uganda and build something sustainable. They'd go, have you ever been to Africa? I'd go, no. And then they'd go, where's the money going to that we're donating towards this cause? I'd go, no idea. It's going to something sustainable. So people were like, what's he going on about? You know, like, what is this guy talking about? Is he talking sense? And I got questioned a lot. A lot of people questioned my actions. And I did it. I did 4 marathons in 4 days. I went over to Uganda. I was 20. Let's talk about that 5 years ago. So I was 5 years ago. I was 24 years old when I made this decision. And actually, it was the best decision I ever made. Despite all the questioning, I ran the 4 marathons. It killed me, mate. I wouldn't suggest it to anyone. It absolutely kicked my backside.
Well, a couple of quick questions come to my mind. I've never asked you this. So at the point you ran the first marathon, what was the furthest you'd ever run before that 26.2? Was it like 5 miles, 6 miles? I mean, as a professional footballer, you must run a lot of miles, but as in a set sort of race and time and duration.
Yeah, as a professional footballer, you don't run. You run if there's a ball involved, kind of thing.
Yes, yeah, during the game.
Your goal is, so it's, and you never run long distances, not like that. You're doing like 7 miles max, like 6 miles max, but it's never constant. So I actually trained big style for it. I was training in Montgomery, Alabama, where it was flat and it was boiling hot that winter. And that fall, it was really hot. So I was trying to train like 3 a.m. I was working 2 jobs. I was the assistant coach of the soccer team as I just graduated, and I was the assistant coach on my scholarship. I was doing a full ride. I was doing my full university degree as well. And I was training like 9, 10, 11 miles a day. I came back to England, and like 3 weeks before, I ran 20 miles. And I thought, 20 miles. And it was torture. Like torture. I really started to panic. Like seriously started to panic, because I was like, if this is what it feels like to run 20 miles. I remember I didn't take my money. I didn't take a wallet with me, and I took no money. And I remember I was running. I was about 17 miles in, and there was a shop. There was a corner shop, we call them in England, a corner shop, which is like a mum and pop shop. All right. And I was like, I was really struggling. My head had gone low on energy and I had no money. So I went in and stumbled in. I was like, can I have some food? Give me some sweets, chocolate, something, please. I'm trying to run this. And they were like, and they literally like saw me, like, they tried to give me everything, and I got through it. But then I got home and I felt bad for the next 6 days. My body was just stiffened up. And that's when I realized how much of a difficult task I'd taken on.
Yeah. But it sounds like your time in America, there was a lot of transformation happened from that comment, from what Gabby said to you. Like you said, he was living in the basement. He wasn't on the team. You know, Brazil isn't a very sort of rich country for most of their population. I don't know about Gabby's journey, but I imagine perhaps he was maybe in that sort of lower half of it. In how you've expressed what he said to you, that he wanted you to be sort of count your blessings, focus on what you have, not so much what you don't have. I mean, do you see America as being a real turning point for you in your transformation? Is that where life started to click and sort of repurpose what you were doing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, America was the most beautiful, hardest, most adventurous experience I ever had. When I left America, I was so down because it was my adventure. I got to build my own friends. Basically, I got to build my own family out there. I got to build everything from the ground up. That was my adventure. And I really struggled when I wasn't allowed to be in the US anymore. Gabby shared one thing with me that stuck with me again forever. He said to me, Krish, he said to me one day, he said, the USA has more poverty than Brazil. And I said, Gabby, shut up, man. Like, you've got the favelas in Brazil. You've got so many people suffering in Brazil. And he said, Krish, poverty is not outside of yourself. Poverty is within the person. And people in the USA suffer and they have no one to go to. And it was like a big hit in the face. And he realized the Brazilian community is so tightly knit and amazing and beautiful and vibrant. And I started to see his point that actually in the US, that how often, I lived in the deep South, so Southern hospitality is beautiful. However, you get to see that there's poverty there, that there's so many people suffering, and they would be, if they could have dialogue and trust people, they would be able to unresolve that poverty. But because we're the US, we're the number one. Like, actually, forget about that stuff. Are you happy? Are you suffering? And how do we break through that? I think there's a lot of ego, and same in England as well. A lot of the Western world, we think we're the best, but what are we truly the best at? It makes me question a lot.
And isn't it interesting how sometimes it takes someone who doesn't know us too well, who's outside our circle of influence, that sees things in us that we don't. Gabby said an interesting thing there to you about, really fair, and that, Krish, you can't run from yourself. Whether you're in the US or in the UK, you've got to deal with your problems and hit them head on. So it's fascinating. Are you still in contact with Gabby now? Have you lost contact with him?
Oh, yeah. I'm always in contact with him. He's one of my besties.
Okay. Good. I was going to say, it's great that someone that's been so inspirational in your change can still be there.
Yeah. And it kind of made the power of friendship, honestly. It made me realize that I am very fortunate that I have an innate trait to build trustworthy friendships. And now I have friends all over the world, which are their foundation is huge. I can rely on them and they can rely on me. If we might not talk all the time, and a lot of people in the UK talk about, are you a true friend? Are you always there for me? Guess what? I am there for you when you need it. We are completely connected all the time. Friendship, there's so much we can go into friendship as well. I do a whole workshop on friendship, but it's huge.
It is, and it's interesting. I mean, like me and you, I don't know. I know at some point we'll meet, but it's really weird to do a podcast with someone, or becomes friends with, but I've never met in person. But there's also a deepness to our friendship that I know that I can trust you, I can rely on you, and you'd be there to support me, and hopefully you'd feel the same with me. So it is. How we connect with individuals is key in our life, isn't it? And being transparent and the openness and the willingness to sort of have accountability is a powerful thing in life. Very powerful.
Massively. And I think I'm good at I'd say I'm quite good at reading people now. But my life was governed by greed and anger. So I cared about getting one over on other people. I would want my success at the expense of others, because that's what football taught you. When the trialists would come in to take your place, guess what? No, I'm not going to let them. I wouldn't talk to those people coming into the dressing room. No, they want my place. So guess what? I'm not going to help them get my place. Screw them. So I was taught that I had to be powerful over the powerless. And it was something I had to unlearn in my human behavior. Because it actually is not the true way as humans we can run as a society.
Yeah. And before we move on to Tales to Inspire, I just want to talk about another powerful story that you told me before about when you came back from the US. You're trying to find your way, you're trying to find employment, you're doing all this crazy stuff about running different locations, and you're working at a Starbucks. And there was someone that used to play professional soccer with that went on to have a career over, I think you said over 500 professional games is what this person played. And you were serving him, or you got to the position where you're serving him at Starbucks. So I'll pause there and I'll let you pick up the story as to how you were feeling and how that interaction took place, and also what that professional soccer player said to you.
Yeah, and well remembered, mate.
I'm a former detective, so don't hold that against me.
I got to make sure I've not done anything trying to make sure I've been well behaved for the last 6 months. So
Yeah, I'm a bad person. I'm a bad person to tell secrets to, Krish. You know, you're afraid someone here. No, so tell a story, because it's a really powerful story, and also everything ties into your transformation. So tell us about it.
Yeah, so once I in 2018, I built the school in Uganda. So went over to Uganda, built it. It took about a year. I was still working in the USA, and I was working at an Orange Theory Fitness as a fitness coach and as a manager there, and I loved it. I was working 3 jobs. I was working my butt off, and basically went back to the UK, went to Uganda to open the school building. It was great, and then I went to go back to the US where my job, my car, my clothes were. I couldn't get into the country, and in 2018.
We do like to keep the riffraff out, Krish. So that could have been the reason why.
Exactly, man. But honestly, when they wouldn't let me in, it was like I was like, how can they not let me in? Like, I couldn't even go on holiday there, and I just lived the last 6 years of my life there, in the USA, and I loved it. I paid my taxes, I contributed to society, and I just ran 4 miles in 4 days to build a school, and they saying I'm not worthy to be in their country. And it really hit me hard. I had a lot of anger, and I applied, found myself back on my mum and dad's sofa, this yellow sofa where I'm feeling all depressed and down. I had all those emotions from when I got released from football came back, and I applied for over 250 jobs. Couldn't get a job. I mean, what do you put on your CV when you've been studying and playing football for all your life, right? And I couldn't even get an interview, and I was really struggling. And I was working in a Starbucks. I got working in a coffee shop, and I was serving people coffee. My life had come down to serving people coffee, and my life was so much bigger than that. I was struggling, and one day I was serving a coffee, like I'm pouring a beer, pouring a pint. I'm serving a coffee, and I look up, and I'm serving this coffee to someone. And it's a friend of mine, Jonah. I used to play football with at Bury as a professional football player. And first instance, I was really embarrassed. I was like, oh no, he's seen me serving him coffee. Like, we used to play professional football together. He's had a great career, 500 appearances, playing for massive clubs like Sheffield Wednesday, but also for smaller clubs in the lower league. But he's made a living out of it, right? And I started to realize, like, wow, like this guy has made it. He's lived my dream. And we had a great chat. He's a really great guy. I've shared his tale on Tales to Inspire. And at the end of that conversation, though, he said something to me that the wind out of my sails went. And he said, Krish, I'm sorry for the way things have turned out. And he apologized for the way my life had turned out. And he meant it in the most beautiful, kind way. He wasn't trying to put me down. But what he was saying was, yeah, I wanted to be the professional football player. I wanted to be the guy. I wanted to be him. And now I'm serving him coffee. And it was just like, no one knew who Krish was. Even my family in England, they didn't know that Krish had earned all this money working 3 jobs in the US. He was playing the league below the MLS. He was doing all this great stuff over there. He built his own community in the USA. Now he's come back to the old normal Krish, and he can't even get a job. The only job he can get is working at a coffee shop. So yeah, that moment was a tough moment, mate. Honestly, I always say I don't question whether I should kill myself or anything, but I always question life, and I never question life more than those moments where I really question, like, why? What is my reason for living right now? Do I have a reason? Why am I on this earth? And it was difficult, mate. It was tough.
Yeah, and I think as people and as humans, it's sort of really second nature for us to compare ourselves to others and also try and create this pecking order as to, well, I'm working in a coffee shop, so I'm below someone who's an office worker. And as someone who's an office worker, feel they're below someone who is working in finance. So I think the emotions and feelings that you had in that time would be what everyone would really go through, as in there's that moment of doubt, oh, I'm going to be seen doing something which isn't considered, a respectable income. But as I know you would now say, someone works in Starbucks, who cares? You're working, you're earning a living, but internally how we process that is very different, isn't it? Depending on the circumstances. So it's fascinating that he said that line to you, that where he was sorry for how your life had turned out. And I really wanted to take you on that journey and take our listeners on that journey, because it builds up to Tales to Inspire. So maybe tell us a bit about what Tales to Inspire is, and I'll delve a little bit deeper in some of those areas.
Yeah, of course. So it kind of goes back to the story as well. Like I always say, I'm not a professional at anything except a storyteller. So my story then was, I actually, only a day later, I went out into Manchester city centre. I went shopping and I saw all these homeless people, Simon, and it's something that either I didn't care about that stuff before 2012 when I left to the USA, or it wasn't as bad. I don't know. But it was massive. It like hit me in the face. There was homeless people everywhere you looked in the city centre. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, are they all drug addicts, alcoholics? Are they all people? Is it them that's the issue? Or is it the societal, is it the society that's the issue? So I'm a very curious person. I always ask questions and I always want to delve deeper. So I have a friend who has an outreach group, a homeless outreach group. So I asked her, I said, Jen Bobs, is it all right if I come out with you on this outreach to check out what you do? And I went out on this outreach group and I saw all these homeless people. And I saw all these homeless people as people. They were amazing. Yes, you may be an addict, addicted to alcohol, or have relationship struggles, but there's something deeper to that. You're a human. And no matter what, for some reason, as humans, and me at that time, I was seeing the homeless person as a homeless person, as homeless, before I saw them as a person. And I started to switch that around really quickly. And I run that homeless outreach group every single week. We're in Manchester. But helping homeless people, I've been abused for helping homeless people. People have said to me, Krish, why help someone who's not even helping themselves? Or you can't teach an old dog new tricks, Krish. There's no point. It's an endless battle. You're in there. Or I've seen people come out of office blocks and I've seen them spit at homeless people, or I've seen them abuse them, and I've seen them kick them and stuff, people who are drunk on nights out. And so I saw there was a massive gap between homeless people and the society that walked past them. And this is when I decided that instead of saying, like, you know what, a defeatist attitude, other people are correct, I'm just going to accept it. I wanted to prove to people, whether right or wrong, that I can make a difference. And if I can make a difference, you sure as hell can. So I decided I would swim 53 miles of the Lake District, 2019. I think I was 27 years old at the time. And I would swim 53 miles of the Lake District. I'd never swam outside before. Never. My auntie calls me a social swimmer. I like the hot tub and steam room.
She knows you well.
She knows me well, not so much the bloody swimming. So I did it. 2019, I swam all 53 miles of the Lake District. Physically, it really did me. My left shoulder went on one of the swims, which was a 7.7 mile swim of Lake Ullswater. It was freezing cold. Mentally, it was tough as well. My granddad died the day before I swam Crummock Water. And I remember saying to my grandma, I'm not going to swim this. And she said, no, you will swim this. Your granddad will have wanted you to swim it. So I swam Crummock Water with goggles full of tears. And I guess it comes to your reason why. And your reason why, and my reason why was so big. I wanted to make a massive difference in this world. All I've ever wanted to do since I went to Uganda was to make a massive difference in this world. And it's been so hard. You know what I mean? All I want to do is help people. And it's so difficult to help people. Why is it so difficult? So I did that. I raised enough money to help 36 homeless people go from the streets into an employment program with an incredible charity called the Booth Centre in Manchester. And it was great. I get messages from all over the world. You're incredible. You're amazing. You're inspiring. I didn't feel it. I'd managed to get myself a job as an admin at the University of Manchester, working behind a computer desk. Yeah, it was a 9 to 5 job. It wasn't great. I was definitely not passionate about it. I had the same amount of money at the end of the month than I did at the beginning of the month. And you know what? I wasn't living my passion. So I realized that I was really struggling. I was starting to feel depressed again. Felt like I wasn't connected to my purpose. I couldn't keep doing these crazy challenges to make myself feel good. So I went out on our usual outreach group with Brew Power, which is the homeless outreach group. And I saw a homeless person that I've never seen before and never seen since. And he said to me, stories are the pages that make up this book we call life. And I had a light bulb moment. Now, Simon, I don't often get light bulb moments, mate. That light bulb very rarely comes on. So when it came on, it was like, whoa. Usually that one phrase, stories are the pages that make up this book we call life, would have gone straight over my head, and I would have thought nothing of it. Actually, I probably would have thought, what's this guy talking about? But that one day I was seeking something. I was looking for a better way. And I realized that every single person has a story. The question is, can we use that story to encourage people to never give up? And that was October of 2019. I just finished the swim in September of 2019. And within 3 weeks, I decided to create talestoinspire.com. So Tales to Inspire is basically November the 3rd, we released Danny's story. Danny was a homeless person for 5 years. He overcame that. So I interviewed him. I wrote his tale down. I sent it to my mum. My mum edited it. She sent it back to me, and I posted it on the website at talestoinspire.com. And I put some helplines at the bottom. And I was like, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Within one day, a young lady who was going to commit suicide got in touch with me. And she said, I've read Danny's story. I felt encouraged, and I've gone and got help via the helpline that we had with the tale.
Wow.
One day, I was like blown away. All I wanted to do was help one person, feel better. So when one person got in contact one day later, within 3 days, Danny's story had been read in 15 countries around the world. And I started to realize that, first of all, maybe this has something. Maybe people are seeking inspiration. But also I started to realize the power of real life individual stories. And I realized that when I get someone on Tales to Inspire, it doesn't really make a difference too much your background, as long as I have that connection and I can trust you. But the thing is the transformation. Have you been through something and overcome it? And every week since, we've released a tale on Tales to Inspire on our blog that's been for people of domestic violence, overcoming relationship struggles, overcoming suicidal thoughts, addiction, simple things as well, like financial stuff. And one person's molehill is another person's mountain, So basically, since then, we've released a tale every single week. We released a Tales to Inspire podcast in October because people were getting in touch saying, you know what, we want to hear these people.
Do more. Yeah.
Yeah, man, do more. And I realized that when I interview people, sometimes I'm crying, sometimes I'm laughing, sometimes I'm up, I'm down, I'm all around. And that emotion from just writing the person's tale down, I was losing a little bit of that emotion that I really wanted our audience to be part of. So our tales have now been read in 92 countries around the world.
Wow.
We've been on BBC, ITV, which is the big channel over here, the television channel over here. We did our first live event, Tales to Inspire Live in March, just before lockdown, where we had 6 of our inspirational guests share 15 minutes of their tale. And people bought tickets and came to this place. We sold out. And it was amazing. I quit my job in January of 2019, my admin job. And people were like, how are you going to earn any money? I was like, I'll figure it out. And they were like, no, but you need to earn money. And actually in my head, I was like, well, I've got the same amount of money at the end of the month than I did at the beginning of the month. Surely going to my passion, I'll figure it out. And I went with it. I have to be connected to my passion. I realized how bad it is when I feel like I'm not. So for me, that was Tales to Inspire now is a movement where anyone can come to, no matter who you are or what you're going through, that we have a story for you. Not to say, look, compare yourself to this person, but to ignite a spark within yourself, because you have this unlimited potential that exists, and it's an absolute vast ocean. And the question is, sometimes you just need that little bit of a spark to ignite it. And the beautiful thing is it's unique and it's authentic to yourself. So that's where Tales to Inspire, the movement I'm trying to create, is one to inspire people to never give up. We actually released a Tales to Inspire book, which if you're on...
Oh, it's got his book there, look. There we go.
It gets in there. So
get it out there.
We released the book. I realized in COVID during the second lockdown, I was questioning myself, how can I make an impact? And I was really like, how can I make a tangible impact? And I was like, I'm not doing it. I want to do something. So I decided to make the Tales from Inspire book, which is 23 real life stories to inspire people that there's nothing that they cannot overcome. People from the US, from the UK.
Did you get the book on Amazon? I know we spoke about that. Is it available on Amazon or just your website?
Just my website right now.
Okay.
But depending on when you release this, it will be available on Amazon as well.
Okay.
But yeah, so basically people can get that book, but that's where, when we was on TV and promoting the book, that's when schools got in contact, and schools asked us if we do anything with education. And it is a one-man band. It's me at the moment, obviously the people who are the guests, but
yeah,
it's completely me. I'm juggling 5,000 things in the air at once. And I often feel like, who am I to do this kind of stuff? But it's also a realization that a determination and a one that will never, ever give up. Like, no matter what, human suffering is so deep, and I'm not willing to not see the potential in someone else.
Now, when you look back against, you said that sort of since 4 years old, all you want to do is play soccer. We get to 19, that doesn't work out. You go to America, that doesn't work out. I mean, do you recognize the old Krish, the one that used to like money, girls, fame, to be recognized? Do you sort of still see that person in you, or is that just a far remove from reality?
Good question, mate.
It's getting deep towards the end now, Krish, isn't it?
I love it.
Yeah. Well, you've done the sales pitch. I've got to take you back a little bit. Come on.
I say, I don't think a human's personality is something that, especially when you get in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, your personality is quite like imagine a riverbank. And the riverbank, the bank of the river doesn't really change unless you really look at a millennial kind of view, and you start to see the riverbanks may change, but the riverbanks are usually pretty sturdy, and I see that as a personality. But the water in the river, it can be very toxic with no fish in it, but that exact same water can be beautiful. The bank's still the same, the personality is still the same, but the question is, can you change those personality traits to get the best out of it? And that's where I feel that my personality, yes, I'm a very angry person. I know I care about superficial stuff and things like that, but I've changed my personality to actually, what can my anger, how can it create value? How can the superficial stuff that I used to care about create value now? So those superficial things, I've just changed them to actually, maybe it's not superficial. Maybe it's things that are more meaningful to me. Maybe it's more about helping someone else. And so I would say I can recognize that person, and sometimes my ego does get ahead of myself, and I really have to check myself. A lot of self-development. I practice Nichiren Buddhism, and I really, really develop myself, and I know that I'll never have made it. The day I think I've made it is the day that I know that actually I'm not going to be happy with myself, basically. So yeah, I think I do recognize that person, and it's very much in me today. But I just do a lot of development and on self-work.
So there's two questions I've got left for you, because I've listened to your podcast, avid listener. I'm going to say to my listeners, when I hear your podcast, I'm like, am I listening to the BBC? This is like amazing, right? It's really like listening to a BBC podcast. And I know you have some challenging questions for your guests at the end. So I've got a couple of questions to really challenge you here. So one of them is that we all crave more in this life, be it things or experiences, but what is enough for Krish Patel? What is enough? What does fulfill you?
What does fulfill me?
Please say that I stumped you. Please say that I stumped you.
I can't do that. I can't give you that satisfaction. I often say that I'm always happy, but I'm not always satisfied. And it's something that I'm working on right now is why am I not satisfied? What is it that satisfies Krish? And what fulfills Krish? And I think the thing that fulfills me is living to my purpose. And I have to make sure now that whenever I feel depressed or whenever I feel really down, and often people don't even know Krish. Krish is this bubbly, vibrant character. They don't know that I struggle. That Krish is like, the one who's always doing these crazy stuff to help others. They don't know that, guess what? First and foremost, he helps himself before he does anything else. So I think for me to fulfill and to stay really satisfied, I have to fulfill my purpose and to stay connected to that frequency of my most authentic, unique self. So that's my answer. It's not a tangible thing, but
no, it's powerful. It's powerful. I mean, you've been on one hell of a journey, boy. You really have. And I guess the last thing is, I mean, from being a young man in his teens, or getting to 19, and the rejection from soccer, the work you do with Tales to Inspire, meeting the homeless person who gave you the great tagline. I do like that, that you've got in there. Say it again. Is it the stories
pages that make up this book we call life?
Yeah, I mean that is a great tagline. So what's the greatest bit of advice that you give to others about how to live their best life?
The greatest bit of advice. Oh man, you really are stumping me. That's 2 out of 2, mate. Well done.
You know what? I did this. I'm going to tell you why I did this deliberately. It was a little not bit tongue in cheek with you, but whenever you end your podcast, I listen to the questions how you end it. I'm like, if Krish ever has me on, those are tough questions. So if he comes on my podcast first, I've got to hit him with the harder questions because they're not easy. But hey, what piece of advice would you give to either a young soccer player, young professional sports person, someone who is coming through extreme adversity? What's the biggest thing that you've learned on your journey that you feel would help someone else?
I would be, and this is something I didn't do when I was young, is be authentic to yourself. Be honest to yourself, be unique to yourself, respect others. Don't do things in the expense of others. Do it based alongside others. Be the best version of yourself. Put 100% in. Always put 100% in. Because then you know what? I did my best. I could not have done anything else. And if you feel like you're in the frequency and you connected to yourself, don't let others doubt you. Others can judge you. However, no one knows you more than you. I get judged all the time. But guess what? Half the time, I don't even know myself. So how can another person judge me? So really be true to yourself. And of course, never, ever give up. Never, ever give up. Changing direction's fine. But the difference between changing direction and giving up is huge. For example, if I had to change a job and I was going to quit, I'd say I've had enough. Quitting isn't the same thing as, you know what? I did my best at that job. I encouraged as many people as I could, and I'm going to go on to a better place and a better job and ensure that the person who comes in is doing better. He's going to get a fulfilled role. So you've done the same thing. You've still quit the job. But are you quitting the job from a place of defeat or a place of victory? And your perspective on that is really important in your life. How do you live your life? And is it really being true to yourself and create value in even the darkest times,
Well, Krish, despite those being 2 challenging questions, you've answered them in the most elegant way, which I know is gonna help others. So, you've had an incredible journey from, your professional career in soccer to move to America, and the fantastic work you're doing with Tales to Inspire. I'm looking forward to seeing your journey continue and you helping many more lives. So Krish Patel from Tales to Inspire, thank you for joining me today on the Riverbank podcast.
Thank you so much, mate. And I'm so appreciative of you, Simon. I just have a moment to say how incredible you are. Since 3-4 months, it feels like I've known you for a lifetime. And that's a true connection as well. And if people do want to learn more about Tales to Inspire, we're on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and obviously on our website at talestoinspire.com. And our podcast is Tales to Inspire.
Thank you for joining the Who I Became podcast. To help spread this inspiring story, be sure to share it with your friends, hit the like button, and of course, subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on any future episodes. We'd also love to hear how this story impacted you. So leave a comment on whatever platform you're watching us from. To learn more about this episode, our guests, or Simon, head over to the Simon Osimo/podcast and sign up to receive the latest information delivered straight to your inbox. Once again, thank you for joining us for the Who I Became podcast.